What is going on, everybody? Bringing you a quick video from my home office today. Only took me about 18 months to get this bad boy set up. I got a desk at a good height, a mic, and a video camera. So I'm going to start making videos, talking about things that are going on and things that I'm working through and such. So today's short video is going to be about some thoughts and tips on home inspections. Whether you're a buyer or seller, how to get through a home inspection period with the least amount of brain pain. Been through a few these past couple weeks, and one of them didn't come to an agreement, and it was a very easy negotiation because the expectations were set. And then I'm thinking of another one that I was speaking with someone about that even though they did come to an agreement, it was not a very easy process. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. When you're doing a home inspection, it seems pretty simple going into it. If you're a buyer, you go find a house, you love it, you make an offer, you bid it up, you sign an agreement of sale, and then boom, the next time you're looking at that house is with the home inspector, usually in the first week or two. So from the buyer's end, I'll start with, when you're going through a home inspection, the first thing to keep in mind is, like, no matter how nice of a house it is, the inspector is going to tell you everything that's wrong with it for an hour to 3 hours. So don't come up with numbers in your head unless you're in construction and know what things cost and what things need to be done. Don't start a running list of, like, hey, it's going to cost me $40,000 to fix all this stuff. It's often a lot less. I think some buyers tend to overestimate just because if it's your first time, you don't know what things cost and you don't know what's really important or not. So make sure you speak with, whether it's your realtor or a contractor friend or somebody, get a clear picture of, like, what do you think, what is someone who knows what they're talking about thinks that needs to be done. What are the must-dos right away, and then what are some things maybe you can wait and do on your own over time. That's number one. Number two is, whichever side you're on a negotiation, I think it's really important to ask yourself a couple questions and think about where the other party's coming from. For example, if you're a buyer and you do an inspection and you decide to ask for a credit instead of the seller doing work, and you add up all the numbers, you take all the time putting a budget together, and it's going to cost $20,000, you think, to fix basement issues or roof issues or backyard issues or whatever it is. Replace appliances, the list goes on and on. You might have your real estate agent send that to the seller, and they come back and they say, you know what, I see your list, thanks for sending it, I'm going to give you $6,000 or $8,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. Sometimes there's huge differences between what one person thinks it's going to take and what the other person really wants to give them. So the first gut reaction that I have when there's a large discrepancy like that is first just asking. You always have to ask and clarify where that number is coming from. Often on the seller's end, there's a couple different reasons why they may come back at a different number or have a completely different idea of what they think needs to be done. Number one is they know their house and they don't think that the repairs or some of the repairs that a buyer may be asking me for is reasonable. So they think it's not reasonable, and that's why they're not giving money back from it. The second reason could be they think that the repair is reasonable, but they don't agree with how much it costs. So let's say it's a couple of joists are rotting or sagging or something in a house, and the buyer, it has someone that comes in and tells them they have to rip all the floor up and do all this stuff, and the seller may want to just replace the joists from underneath in the basement, and they think it's not a problem with the subflooring. The differences in those sort of prices with those two things, big difference. One could cost $500, another one could cost $5,000. So sometimes sellers don't agree with the way they think work is going to be done, and you have to ask, can you please clarify where that number is coming from? My number is coming from here, and I think that it's going to cost this based on the estimate or the conversation I had with such and such. That way you can always clarify if it's just them not liking the repair you're asking for, or if it's a difference in the number. So that's really important to think about. And the third thing, sometimes sellers know what repairs need to be done. They know how much it's going to cost and maybe on the same page, but they just don't want to give the money back anyway, which is fine. And I think it's important to, whether you're on the buyer's end or the seller's end, if you're at a standstill in negotiation and you're getting a sense after you're asking these clarifying questions that the other party's not really trying to have it, and they are expecting something different. Maybe they want more for their house. Maybe they feel like they undersold it. Or maybe on the flip side, maybe a buyer felt like they overpaid for a little bit. Maybe they got into a bidding war and paid 20 grand over asking and are trying to get back down to a reasonable number. So it's important just to know what is happening in the other person's head and know when to eject and to pull the plug. And be serious about, like, when I say pull the plug, know when to terminate the transaction, or tell the other party, hey, we're actually going to terminate the transaction now. Sometimes, 9 times out of 10, your transaction's probably going to get terminated. Sometimes that flushes out whether the other person is not bluffing, but whether it'll flush out what their real number is or where they're really at. So I think it's really important to know when to walk away and just when to emotionally separate yourself from a negotiation. It's really, really hard to do that sometimes, even if you do this all the time. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Home inspections are not always easy and breezy. They're often the lowest point in the transaction. But on the flip side, it's really good to remember that once you make it through a home inspection, usually the rest of the transaction, unless you have like loan issues or appraisal issues, typically the rest of the transaction tends to be a little lighter. You're getting closer to closing. You're starting to make plans. So you make it through that difficult part, and hopefully you have a good rest of the transaction. So thanks for watching the video so far. I'm going to be starting to make more of these videos for the channel, probably 1 or 2 or a couple a week. So if you have any suggestions on video topics or things that are on your mind or things you're going through, I can literally click a record button right here and make a video even on the same days if I get a comment. So feel free to say hi in the comment section, and thanks for watching.